Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brian Laufer, and I am the Vice President here at QuoteWerks. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Just make sure. Good. All right. So today, what we're going to be doing is talking about the new features added in QuoteWerks version 5.7. If you're on an older build or version, you can easily update to the latest just by installing version 5.7 build 1. You do not need to install incremental updates. When you install an update, you receive all the features and fixes available up into and including the build you installed. So as you can see, we are going to have a very short PowerPoint here. Then we're going to go ahead and go through the live demo of key features and then answer any questions that we didn't answer as we went through all of your, as we went through the demo. In this release, we have over 26 new features, and that was at the time that I made this PowerPoint. We've added a few. We actually just released a small update to build 1 that added a couple of new features as well. We have over 5 new miscellaneous features and, of course, fixes as well because we are software. So if you have updated QuoteWerks, you've probably noticed that we did make some changes to the splash screen, as well as the login screen where we've got the winter landscape there, or the snow. We did go ahead and update that. So now in version 5.7, we have a desert landscape. And we do this not only for you guys, so you have something different to look at, but also for us as well. So in support, if we're remoted in, we know very quickly what version of QuoteWerks you're running. And something we did recently as well, if you're using QuoteWerks Web, you may have noticed that on the splash screen as it's loading, it's showing that as well. So also, we should talk about integration updates. Besides those key features, whenever a CRM, PSA, or accounting solution comes out with an update, we need to make sure that everything works with that. In this update, we've got support for QuickBooks Desktop 2022, Sugar CRM 11.2, Goldmine 2021.2, lots of .2s here, Maximizer CRM 2021 R3. And then for ConnectWise Manage users, we added a really cool feature. Whenever you have recurring items without a start and end date, by default, before, what we were doing is just going ahead and setting it for 1 year. So a start and an end date, basically a year out. People have wanted, because of the way that ConnectWise Manage handles forecasting of those opportunities, they wanted to have the option to set it to just 1 month. That way it helps with the actual forecasting within ConnectWise Manage, and we added that in this release, and we can cover that if you're interested. And we've got some other smaller integration updates as well. And then we've got the core features, the meat and potatoes of version 5.7. The big thing is going to be vendor RFQ. Basically, it's a way for you to communicate with your vendors. You can negotiate pricing, ask questions, have your vendors bid on different deals if it's something that if they want to bid on. Basically, it's a way to organize all of your information for your vendors in one spot, so you don't have like phone calls and emails and stuff like that. It's all in one location. And at a recent event, I basically equated it to Quote Valet for your vendors. It does more than that, but in a nutshell, that's kind of the easiest way to explain what it actually does. And again, like I said before, if you have questions while we go through this, feel free to ask in the GoToMeeting bar, or GoToWebinar bar, sorry about that. And for vendor RFQ, the left here, the black screen here, this is what your interface is. And then on the right, this is what your vendors are going to see. So this is like the email that they get for the request for pricing. And then this over here is going to be like how they bid. This is changing. It's very dynamic right now where we are with vendor RFQ. We just released it. you'll see some slight tweaks, and that's why you haven't seen a lot as far as specifics and videos and webinars or whatnot yet. We'll do that as we get closer to having more feedback from customers. So we also added a new product sourcing panel. Well, for some of you, it's new. Basically, it's what used to be the Etilize panel. And now what we're going to be doing is showing you product sourcing information, even if you don't have a product content subscription or Etilize subscription. So basically, you'll be able to see all of your pricing from all of your different product sources within QuoteWerks with a single search. So even if you don't have Etilize, you'll be able to see this panel where you can actually see the pricing from like 5 of your product sources within QuoteWerks, including external sources. So maybe QuickBooks or ConnectWise Manage or Autotask or any of those, you'd be able to see that. And really where this comes into play, and you'll see this as we do the demo, it's with the vendor RFQ integration. For Amazon business users, this is huge. You can actually see your Amazon pricing now within QuoteWerks. And why this is important is because before we were just showing the generic Amazon pricing, and that was because Amazon didn't have an API for us to use, and we were one of the very first CPQ solutions to implement that. So we're providing Amazon with feedback on that based on what you're saying and also from what we're seeing as well. They've added new API functionality based on what we've asked for, which is awesome. So when we demo this, you'll see how seamless it goes from straight Amazon pricing to Amazon business pricing. If you don't already have an Amazon business account, you won't be able to use the Amazon business pricing, obviously, because it's specific to you, but you can still use the old API if you want to do that as well. For Zoho users, we added the ability to have line items from QuoteWerks go up to Zoho CRM. There were some issues, some big issues with us adding those products to the Zoho CRM deal. Basically, if had to do with the way that they handled costs and prices whenever you added a new one to a deal. So what we figured out we could do is actually create a quote and then add products to that quote in Zoho that is then linked to that deal. So now you'll have the option to have all your products in QuoteWerks on a QuoteWerks quote to go up to that Zoho quote as well. And I see some questions have come in, and I will answer those before we get into the demo if we can do that. Then we also added for Etilize users the ability to apply a customer product profile matrix pricing to your products in Etilize. So previously, if you sold, we'll just say laptops, you could assign, well, all laptops mark up 20% and all printers mark up 25%. Well, now what we've done is we've made it so if you have different customer tiers, so if you have just make it easy, silver, gold, and platinum customers. Maybe depending on the type of product you're selling, each one of those tiers would get a different pricing. So that's what we've enabled in this, which is really awesome. And I look forward to showing you guys that. And then something that applies to all QuoteWerks users is we added additional reporting functionality to QuoteWerks. So not only can you report on the documents and the document items and your products, but now you can actually report on your purchase order. So you're purchasing, if you've created a purchase order or sent an electronic order, say to Tech Data or Ingram or Amazon Business or Dell, you'll be able to report on that, as well as any of your payments, contacts, vendors, bundles, configurations, basically any item, or I shouldn't say item, any field or table in QuoteWerks, you'll be able to report off of. If you're seeing something that we're missing, let us know. We can definitely look at adding it now that we've built this framework into QuoteWerks. So some resources, I want to make sure that we have these before we get into the actual demo here, which is why most of you are here. But if you have questions for support, you can send an email to support@quoteworks.com. It will create a ticket, but you can definitely give us a call as well. It's our main number and it's option 3. Likewise, if you have questions about subscriptions or licensing or anything like that, give our sales team a call, or if you want, you can send us an email as well. On top of that, we have free trials, so for like Vendor RFQ or Quote Valet if you're not already using those. And then we also have videos, help documentation, live and recorded webinars, which you're doing right now. We also offer services as well. So if you want like a sales rep training, you can work one-on-one with one of our senior technicians, schedule like an hour block. And that can also be used to basically train you on QuoteWerks in certain areas as well. We also have an annual user summit. Unfortunately, this year it's going to, or in 2022, it will be virtual again. More details will be coming in the next couple of months here. In 2023, we're still planning on going back to in person as well. And then obviously, like I said, we have phone and email support as well. So like I said, you guys are asking questions. Continue to do that throughout the entire webinar. We will answer those as best we can. And the biggest question that most of you have asked, I think I got like 15 emails about this, is the webinar going to be recorded? Yes, it is. And we will add it to the to our YouTube channel as well as to our videos page on our website. Also, I invite you to subscribe to us on social. That way you can know what's going on. So before we do this, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the questions that you guys had. Timothy had a question, is it possible to have a default quote template tied to a specific customer? Yes and no, I'll come back to that later. All right. Jason had a question about the Etilize and the panel. I'm gonna come back to you on that there, Jason. And then Alan had a great question for vendor RFQ. Is there a list of vendors that will work with vendor RFQ, or is it universal? It's going to be universal, so basically any vendor. And it sends them an email. So they don't have to subscribe to anything. It just automatically will work. So it doesn't matter what vendor you work with, you'll be able to use vendor RFQ. All right, and then we'll come back to all the other ones. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up QuoteWerks here. And let's go ahead and start with Zoho CRM first. I know this is a feature that people have been asking for. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna go ahead and add in some products and some customers here. So let's go ahead and bring in a customer first from Zoho. So one of my favorites is Thor here. And we'll go ahead and add that one. Close our active quotes. And we'll go ahead and add some products here. Let's go to our products. Just add a couple of quick products here. Okay, so we've got, we'll make some changes just so we can see it easier when we upload it to Zoho here. What I'm gonna do is click on save. And you'll notice that we are going to be creating a new link document, attaching it to a deal, and this is what's new, creating a new quote, and then we're gonna create a new follow-up call as well. So let's go ahead and click on OK. And this is going to be creating our new deal. We could also link it to an existing deal in Zoho. We're not going to do that. We'll go ahead and click on OK. You guys have all seen that before that use it. Same thing here. We'll go ahead and do this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new quote inside of Zoho CRM. So let's go ahead and select from the drop downs. This is basically all the required fields that we have. It's going to be a draft. So we've got that, and then we'll click on OK. So that's creating the quote in Zoho. So if we go over to our links tab now, you'll notice that we've got all this stuff here. So we've got our contacts, our companies, our deal, our activities, and then our quote as well. So let's go ahead and click on that. And now, here is that quote. If we scroll down, you'll see our 25-inch TV and our 20-inch TV. And you'll notice that the only thing that really comes over is the price when we're dealing with the item inside of Zoho. So there we go. And then let's go ahead and win this document real quick. And to do that, we're just going to go ahead and go to File and Convert to Order. Click on OK. Well, that's not good. I'll figure out what happened there. And click on OK. All right. And now if we go back to this quote, it's fine. We'll refresh it. You'll see that the quote stage is closed 1 now. All right. And the setup is just like any of our other CRM integrations. So like if I go to contacts and set up contact manager, go to Zoho CRM here, you'll see that we have Zoho setup here. And you'll go to deals, and for the quotes, you'll notice what we're going to be mapping to the QuoteWerks field to the Zoho name. By default, we usually use the manufacturer part number, but you can select from anything that you want. You can also have QuoteWerks generate a part number for you as well, like combining maybe the manufacturer and manufacturer part number or something along those lines. That is definitely an option there. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead then. The other thing that we added too, actually, before I go off of Zoho here, something is really awesome is we added additional data link support, and it's bidirectional data link support as well. So now whenever we go ahead and create or update the quote header, for instance, in Zoho, we have the ability to read into QuoteWerks maybe something at the header level here, or we can write out to different fields inside of Zoho on the quote side as well. So there's lots of options as far as how the data link works, and obviously we can do it on the sold to, ship to retrieval as well. So any questions on Zoho? And while those are coming in, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can answer some of the other questions that we've got here. Chris had a question about Exchange and QuoteWerks Web. I would send an email to support on that one, Chris. I don't have an answer for you on that at this time. For any CRMs that we do not integrate with, Eamon, I would recommend sending an email to support@quoteworks.com, or the best thing to do for any new feature requests is on our forums to request that there. So if you don't see us integrating with a certain CRM or PSA, that's the best place to go, because what you can do is you can ask for a feature and other users can then ask for it or say, hey, we're doing this to make that happen within QuoteWerks, or yes, we want it as well. So that would be a great one to show. All right. All right, so we've got some questions about some other CRMs as well. And then so I'll skip over that and we'll get back here. All right, so we'll cancel this and that. So I was talking about the vendor sourcing panel before, and this actually, Jason, answers your question about, why do you need Etilize if we're going to be providing you with the vendor sourcing panel? And the reason behind that is because the product content subscription is actually going to give you the sourcing information for Tech Data and Ingram and Synix and D&H and a bunch of the other distributors as well, along with the pictures and the spec sheets and stuff like that. The vendor sourcing panel isn't going to do that. That is not what it's intended to do. So what we can do here is if we go to products here, I can, for instance, go to Etilize here and do a search. I'm going to search for a product that I know is in multiple product databases here. I can do find. And what this is going to do now is it's going out, it just went out to ConnectWise. And we'll make this a little bit bigger here. Just make sure we get all our pricing here. And if I scroll down, you'll notice that I have both ConnectWise and my primary vendor, and primary vendor is just another product source that I have here. They have these icons here, and that's telling us that that's where those came from. So the D&H and Synex, Ingram, Tech Data, and Provu, those all came from Etilize. However, the ConnectWise and primary vendor are coming from just the generic panel that everybody has access to. The other thing that's on here too is the ability to have the pictures and spec sheets as well. Obviously, you know, the spec information for this Cat6 cable isn't as important, but this is just showing you how that can be used. So if I were to add this item, maybe from Tech Data here, I'll go ahead and add this item. This can also be used, the vendor sourcing panel can also be used on the document items tab as well. So if I click on the Etilize panel here, I'm so used to calling the Etilize panel, I apologize. And then this is coming across here. First time you load it, it's going to take a little bit more time because it has to load all the information. But as you can see, we're just go ahead and get the pricing one more time here across the board. If I scroll down, you'll notice that we still have ConnectWise and primary vendor. So let's go ahead and find an example that's not an Etilize product so you can see what that looks like. So if I was to do a search here, we'll go to my primary vendor here. We'll go to my Cloudfire. I'll go ahead and click on the panel here. Of course it's not. I think I need to add it to my quote. Basically, I didn't bring in a manufacturer or a vendor part number, so that's not going to work. Let's see what happens if I add this guy. Will it work from here? Yeah, well, this one, it was found in both the primary vendor as well as in ConnectWise as well. So that is what's necessary from the product lookup. You need to have one of those two comparisons. Otherwise, on this screen, you'll be able to do it just by the manufacturer part number. Let's see, we've got a couple of more questions in here. How often do Etilize prices update? Well, actually, the Etilize prices don't update. They are real-time prices from your vendors. So Tech Data, I believe, is pretty much up to the minute, and all the other ones are pretty close as well. So those are real-time, going out to your vendors and saying, hey, XYZ vendors, what is my cost for this item? So it's real-time information there. So I hope that answers your question, Alan. Maria had a question, is vendor RFQ only for QuoteWerks, QuoteValet? It is not. You do not have to have QuoteValet in order to use vendor RFQ, and we'll get into that in a moment. Okay. All right. All right. Great. All right. So let's go ahead now. I hope that answers the question. Oh, and the setup for this, super important. If we go to the Tools Options menu here, and if we, previous to this update, if you were using it just with Etilize, it was on the real-time tab. But now if we go to the miscellaneous tab here, you'll see over here, we can choose our databases, and you can select which databases it's going to search in as well. So I want to make sure that you guys know about that. Okay, question here from Chris. Does the new build work with QuickBooks 22? Yes, that's actually QuickBooks 2022. They're very clever with that. So I'll go ahead and close out of that. All right. So we talked about moving it. We talked about it working with both native and external product sources, and we showed 2 different examples there. So perfect. So let's go ahead and talk about Amazon Business a little bit here. So for instance, if you've got Amazon set up inside of QuoteWerks, we have the ability to search Amazon products. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go ahead and search here for an ASIN or an Amazon part number real quick here. You'll see that we have a price here of $64.99. The vendor is Amazon. What I'm going to do now, just remember that's $64.99 and vendor of Amazon. Let's go ahead and set up Amazon Business now. So we'll close out of that. Go to Tools, Options, Real-Time and Real-Time Setup. And we'll go over to Amazon. And so this is how you enable the product lookup Amazon source. If you do not have this connected to your Amazon Business account, it's just going to be straight up Amazon pricing. I'm going to go ahead and do connect. I'm going to go ahead and set this up off screen. But as far as setting this up, you do have to have an Amazon Business account. If you don't, you're going to get some weird messages coming up on your screen when you try to connect. So just make sure that you do have an account there. So we'll close out of this real quick, and then I'll do a little cheat off screen, make this work. And that just made everything work, hopefully. We'll do okay. All right, and we'll go back to products, and we're going to search for that same product one more time. I think we said it was $64.99, so if we do a find, I know this is a very small item, but you'll notice that it's $64.34 now, so it's actually my pricing, and the vendor now says Amazon Business. If I right-click on the item, I can show view the item URL, and that's actually going to take me out to Amazon. I'm not logged into my Amazon Business account, so that is the generic Amazon pricing. All right. So basically, you just have to have an Amazon Business account as well as the QuoteWerks real-time module, and you'll be able to have access to that. All right. Any questions on Zoho CRM, vendor sourcing, or Amazon Business? Got a couple of other things that we haven't gotten to yet, so I'll get to those in a little bit. All right. While you're thinking about those, we'll go ahead and move on to the Etilize product profile matrix. Like I said, it's basically a way for product content subscribers to dynamically price your items. So something you'll notice with this patch cable here, it's yellow in the price modifier column. And the reason it's yellow in the price modifier column is because I've got it linked to a profile. So if we go back, it's M25. If I were to select government pricing, you'll see that it's now M300, and we've got that product marked up. So basically, depending on the type of customer I'm selling to, I'm going to have a different price modifier. And that's all going to be based off of the type of item I'm selling as well. So first, before we go into the setup, let's go ahead and find that patch cable one more time here. Let this find the item one more time. And if I highlight over here, you'll see that in the box there, it says connector cables. That is the Etilize category for this item. You really don't use that anyplace else, so that's why it's not really shown, to make it very easy to see. But any type of product that you search for, so let's do a UPS, for instance. So that UPS is general purpose UPS. So you could have the general purpose UPSs have a different markup for different types of customers than you would for you know, the cables, for instance. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, how that's set up. And again, you do have to have the product content subscription for this. And what we'll do is go to Tools, Options, and we'll go to real-time setup. And what I'm going to do here is go to the product content subscription, and you'll see where we have the map to price modifier. And what it's doing is it's going out, getting all the categories from Etilize. It's just going to take a moment the first time you do this. It's loading them. And you'll notice that I have a couple of different things. So like a 3D printer, we get a markup of 10%. But if we scroll down, you'll see my connector cables are actually linked to a product profile of networking cables. So that's how it knew a connector cable is going to get that price, as opposed to the other items, which would get a different price modifier. Sorry about that. And if you don't have something marked, what it's going to do is it's going to use the generic price modifier that you have for all new items, which pulls from here. Okay. All right. That's that. Okay. All right. And the cool thing too, if we go over to our Sold to Ship to tab, you'll see that we have our Sold to price profile under the Sold to column here. You can actually use your data link. So if we were to go to Contact, set up Contact Manager, we'll just, again, use Zoho as an example. Oops. If I go to Edit here and go to Retrieve Sold to, and we'll do Zoho. And no matter what CRM you're working with, this is all very similar. So we could bring in the, you know, if we had like a category or some other field inside of Zoho. So I think we have one in here. I thought we did. But if you had like a custom field or something like that, you could do that. So we'll just go ahead and say tag, for instance. We could bring that into the sold to price profile, which is this one right here. So whenever we bring in a contact from Zoho, it's going to go ahead and pre-fill that profile. This could be coming from ConnectWise, it could be coming from Autotask, it could be coming from MS CRM. It's exactly the same. So if you have that category set up within your CRM or PSA, that can pull into this profile and it would flow in for all of your pricing. It's pretty awesome, and it saves a lot of time to make sure everybody gets the pricing that they're supposed to. All right. I think that's everything we're going to talk about there. If you have questions on that, let us know and ask in that column there. So we talked a little bit about the enhanced reporting, but what does that actually mean, right? So basically, you will have the ability to report off of payments and purchase orders, pretty much anything. And that's set up under reports and management reports here. And when you're installing your update for version 5.7, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, you'll want to make sure you install the sample data, because that's what's going to get you these new templates. You'll still have the ability to create these new ones on the fly, but you're not going to get our new templates or our new layouts. So for instance, our bundles here, if I click on preview, what this is going to do is it's going to create a report just on my bundles. Apparently I have some items in Autotask as well as ConnectWise, as that was coming up here. So now we've got a report. So here's my simple bundle. Here's my first on-site visit bundle. Got a Haas widget. So just like that, it did a report on all my bundles that I have inside of QuoteWerks, whether it be grouped or simple. So this is a simple bundle. Here's a group bundle. So it does, you can report off of that now within QuoteWerks. Also, the big one here, it has to do with like purchasing, for instance. So I don't have a lot of good data in here. I'm going to apologize in advance. If we click on preview, we'll do a start date. We'll go back a while. That way make sure we get something. And we'll go to today, click on OK. And just like that, we've got a purchase order, purchasing report, so we can see each of the items as well as each of the POs that was generated. It's pretty cool. And like I said, we updated the look. So like an old product catalog would have looked like this one. That generate there. It's got quite a few pages. So it's pretty blah, you know, but it gives you the basic information that you wanted. However, our new one, it's going to be a little bit more usable, and you could pretty much just make a few tweaks to this and you'd be able to send this out to your customers yourselves if you wanted to. Send it out as like a PDF, for instance. All right. And so, and then as far as like creating the new layouts, let's go ahead and do that. We'll just create a new report here real quick. So as you can see, when you're doing your reports, you know, typically you were doing a documents report or a product report, but now you can select any one of the tables and you have the ability to filter as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on this capability, but I'm just showing you what's available to you now and how you would do it. It's very straightforward there. All right. A couple of questions came up. Will you be able to, Jason had a question, will you be able to install new sample data for these new features if sample data already exists? I seem to recall on updates says it will not overwrite existing. Good question there, Jason. Our report names are brand new. So you didn't have a bundles, headers, and items report name before, so that's not an issue. But so our product catalog report, we've changed the configuration. We've changed the configuration name as well as the report name. So that way, when it goes over, when you're installing it, it's not going to overwrite anything that you currently have, and you'll still be able to get those files. All right. All right, and Alex, your question about PO tables and the values for PO status and line status, I don't know that off the top of my head. If you send an email to support, they should be able to answer that for you. If not, you know, send an email to community@quoteworks.com. We can make sure that we get that for you. A question from Todd. So we can export all the purchasing data to a CSV. Is this new? Yes, this is something that is brand new in version 5.7. People have been asking the ability to do reporting on payments as well as on purchasing, and we finally have that. So happy to share that with you guys. Okay, I know that there are some other questions here. Like Claudio, you had a question about data link and MS CRM. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because it's basically the same as what we had for the Zoho. But if you have specific questions, support can answer those for you. Okay. All right. So that brings us to vendor RFQ. I'm not going to, this is not like an end-all demo of what vendor RFQ can do. This is more of an introduction. Basically a quick overview, and it's not meant to be a comprehensive overview. We'll be having many more webinars and videos on vendor RFQ early next year. Let's see. I think I've already said as well, we are selling vendor RFQ right now, but we are also actively enhancing and making changes to it on a daily basis based on the feedback from our early adopters. If you fit the criteria and want to try out vendor RFQ, you can ask for an extended trial by sending an email to sales@quoteworks.com. As far as what that criteria is, I can go over that right now. You'll need to have the corporate edition of QuoteWerks, and it needs to be rehosted to a cloud accessible SQL database. What that means is if you are using QuoteWerks Web already or using our database hosting, you're done. There's nothing else that you need to do. It's already set up for you. Basically, we just need to activate it, and you'd have access to vendor RFQ. And if you're not in one of those cases, there are options available. So as long as you're on the corporate edition rehosted to SQL. All right. And question that probably will come up, what is the subscription? Sorry about that. What does it actually cost? It's $20 per month per user, but it doesn't have to match your QuoteWerks count. So really, you're probably going to have maybe 1 or 2 people that would need access to vendor RFQ. It's not something that if you have like 10 users of QuoteWerks, you're not going to need 10 users of vendor RFQ. And it is, it's reserved concurrency as well. So once one person is done using it, another person could then use it as well in your company, even with 1 license. So we make it very easy on that. And then the only real setup as far as using this is under utilities and vendor maintenance. Sorry about that. And basically, you just need to have your vendors in here, and then you have to have an email address. That's really it. You can do more, like including a sales rep and that sort of thing, but that's all there is to it. So as you can see, I've got, for tech data, as we go through this, you'll see, and we've got John Smith and tech data. It's community plus tech data at QuoteWerks.com. This is just for testing. So we're not actually inundating tech data with live RFQ requests here. All right. So let's go ahead and see how this works. So we've got this brand new quote here. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and say we're offline. So that way we can just go ahead and request this. So let's go ahead and take these 2 items here and go ahead and send an RFQ out to some vendors. So we're going to go ahead and create a new RFQ. And you'll notice that I only have 2 vendors, even though I had, I think, 6 or 7 on the setup. And that's because these are the only 2 that have email addresses set up. You must have an email address for your vendor in order to send it to them. So we're going to go ahead and click on OK. So this is going to be our name. This is basically what you're going to see, as well as what your vendors are going to see as a reference to this RFQ. And it's going to default to the document name in QuoteWerks as well. So we'll click on OK. Now this is going to be an internal note. And we can just say, and this is something that your vendors will not see. So if we click on OK, now we've got a bid request note for ProVantage. This is something, however, ProVantage will see. I could say, how much for these TVs? If we click on OK, it's sent it out, and here is the bid request, and it's telling us what the email address it was. Click on OK. Now it's going to do it for Synex, and it's going to default the note that we sent to the previous vendor because it's probably going to be pretty similar, at least in the beginning when you're communicating with all of your vendors, because this is like a shotgun approach. It's going to send it out to all of them. We're going to go ahead and click on OK. And one more time. All right, so basically we sent 6 bid requests across all of our vendors. So what does that mean? Well, we had 2 items times 3 different vendors, so 6 different bid requests. So what does that actually mean? So if we click on this button here, it's going to take us out to vendor RFQ. All right, and now we can see that we have line 1 and line 2. So we've got the 25-inch TV and the 20-inch TV. No one has viewed it yet. It's none of our vendors, but if I click on the drop-down list, I can see a little bit more detail for each of the vendors. And like I said before, it doesn't have to be a vendor that we even know about. I mean, it could be Joe down the street. Obviously, it's not going to have their logo, but you do have the ability still to send that RFQ request to them. So let's go ahead and now pretend like we are one of those vendors. So we'll go ahead and refresh. And let's go ahead and pretend that we're ProVantage. You can see, basically I'm using Gmail here, so it's taking all of those emails and putting them all together because they look very similar, but you can see that there are different RFQ requests. So let's go ahead and click on the one for ProVantage. And here are those items that it's saying that we're looking for. So maybe for this TV, it's going to be $500. That's how much I'm going to bid as ProVantage. We want a vendor part number to be put in here. Sometimes that vendor part number is going to be the same as the manufacturer part number, so we made it very easy. So if they just click on that button, it goes ahead and pre-fills it. And then there's conditions. Maybe must be bought by next week, and submit bid. So now that's been submitted. If the vendor had any questions, he or she could do that here. And you'll notice that it's still awaiting our bid on that one. So let's go back to our vendor RFQ view. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. You'll notice that our inbox here says 28. If I refresh again, should have updated. It must be something else that I did on that. And here is the one that we just created for Thor's Hammers new TVs. So one of these items has bid activity, the other one has no views. There is what we got from ProVantage, and it says $500. If I go back here now, actually, which one was that? Sorry, that was our 25-inch TV. So if I take our 25-inch TV here, I go ahead and show the vendor sourcing panel. Again, this is one of the reasons why we added this across the board for all users. You'll notice that now I've got my pricing here for ProVantage. Now this view that you're seeing here, you'll also see in QuoteWerks Web. I'm not going to do a QuoteWerks Web demo here today, but this panel is in QuoteWerks Web now. So you'll see everything you see here for this product sourcing panel will be available to you if you are using QuoteWerks Web. So let's go ahead now and go back. Again, we're doing a little bit of pretending here. Let's go ahead and pretend like we are Synex now. You'll notice that there are, oh, this is an older bid, older request, sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going in as Synex here. We've got our 25-inch TV. Maybe because of sourcing problems at Synex or some other vendor, I'm not going to be able to get it in. So I can just decline to bid. And just like that now, I'm going to know as a sales rep or purchaser that I'm not going to be able to source this item from Synex. The other thing we can do too, maybe Synex has a question about the second item, however, like when are you going to need this by? Post that. And if we go back to vendor RFQ now, oh, actually I shouldn't have refreshed it. It actually told us that we did get an update. Let's go back. You can see that we've got our bid status as we had before, but now we have a question or a comment, and it's telling us that right here. So we can go back over here now. You'll see that Synex is the one that had it. Say next week. So if I refresh this, basically Synex would have gotten a response on that via email. And a click, and you can see they're getting those responses. So this is keeping all the communication together. Again, very similar to what we would have done in, very similar to how you do with the Quote Valet, and that's why I kind of use that as an example. But it's just a way to keep all the communication together. Now, that's great, we've done that, but what about actually awarding things? So let's go ahead and do one more thing here. Maybe instead I decided I was going to pick up the phone and actually talk to my rep. We can actually submit bid by proxy. So, maybe you have a vendor that doesn't want to use this, or maybe they sent you a quote, or maybe you just talked to them on the phone. So in this case, we could say this item is $400. Tech data part number is going to be TD400. Spoke on phone. And OK. And so now this has been set by proxy. If we take a look up on our different line items, we'll notice that tech data didn't do anything for the first one. Synex declined to bid. And then we have this item from ProVantage. Let's go ahead and award it. And basically, this is going to let us know that we're going to need to do that from QuoteWerks. And we can do that either via QuoteWerks Desktop or in QuoteWerks Web. So if we go ahead and refresh this, so now this is back in QuoteWerks. I know we're doing some pretending. It's always difficult to kind of show this with with the vendor RFQ or Quote Valet when you're doing these pretends. But you'll notice that this one was received. So just like that, it's received. Let's go ahead and make sure that this gets awarded. Let me just update that. Sorry. That just awarded it to ProVantage. And you'll notice that it says awarded here. And if I highlight over there, we do have the price conditions must be bought by next week. It's got the quote requested on and when it was responded. Likewise, we've got the decline on that one as well. So let's go down to the 20-inch TV just to see what happened there. And you'll see that the tech data one was submitted by proxy. Let's go ahead and update that one. You'll see that now the vendor is tech data. All right. So I just wanted to give a quick high-level overview of what vendor RFQ is. It does a lot more than this, but it's just a high-level overview of what you'll be able to do with vendor RFQ. So we've got a bunch of other questions that came in, so I want to be able to answer as many of those as I can. So question from Alyssa. In vendor RFQ, do communications with vendors stay there forever, or is there ever a time line in which older messages or communications gets deleted? They won't get deleted, but you will be able to archive them. So that way, you'll always be able to refer back to them. And one of the benefits that we're going to be adding as well for your vendors is that they'll be able to see every time that they've maybe quoted this item to you in the past. So, or maybe you've requested this 25-inch TV from them. They'll be able to see every time that they've quoted it to you through our system. Obviously, it's not going to be outside of it, but it's going to be in that system. So that way they'll see that. And that's why we want to make sure that we just archive and not delete. Now, you do have the ability, however, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but you do have the ability to recall bids. So maybe you accidentally sent a bid to a vendor that you didn't want to. You can go ahead and basically recall it. You can also send it again to the vendor. So like maybe it's been a day or two and they haven't sent anything back. You can go ahead and send it again to them. So make sure that that's been said. Let's see. Okay. Question Kyle had, which is actually a really good question. I should have answered that earlier. How does one update to version 5.7? Well, simply all you need to do is if you're new to QuoteWerks, you're going to want to start a free trial. But if you're an existing customer, what I always recommend doing is go to the customer area at the top. This is always going to show you, new information coming from us. But from here, you can go ahead and go to the Update Center and download the update. And you'll have an update key that you'll need to use to install the update. If you're covered under maintenance or UMP, the update to version 5.7 is free. If we click on, since we're here, you'll notice that I think I said that there were 25 or 26 new features. Now there's 29 new features. So as you can see, we're always updating and adding new functionality to QuoteWerks. All right. Question from Alex. Where is the best place to get information on report writer capabilities? We do have a video from our last, actually, let me go ahead and just verify before I say that. I think it's here. Yeah, we do have an introduction to reporting that we actually had from our last user summit. So we did include that. That entire session is available on our videos page. We also have a decent amount of information in our documentation, which you can always get to by going to support and help documentation. But if you have any other questions, should say specific questions, you can give support a call or send them an email. But if it's like, how do I do reporting in QuoteWerks? That's going to be something that would be professional services or working with one of our partners. But if you have a specific question, our support team can answer that for you. All right. Let's see. That's not really that relevant right now. For some of these, I'll go ahead and follow up with you after the fact as well. Luke had a question about QuoteWerks Web. Luke, I might want to follow up with you. I'm not sure exactly what was shared with you about QuoteWerks Web. We are working very hard to release a fully web version of QuoteWerks. Right now, we are in a dual environment where we've got QuoteWerks Web and QuoteWerks Desktop. QuoteWerks Desktop has all the functionality in QuoteWerks. QuoteWerks Web can pretty much do everything that a sales rep needs to be able to do. However, they're not going to have the ability to do layout design or assign user rights or anything like that. But as a sales rep, you have the ability to create and modify quotes and whatnot. So what the salesperson probably told you about QuoteWerks web development halting, it was pretty much just on a temporary pause so we could get QuoteWerks, vendor RFQ out. Now that that's out, we are moving right along with QuoteWerks web functionality. So if you have questions on that, send an email to support and to my attention. I'll be happy to answer that better for you. Alan Jones had a question. Any plans to add additional distributors like Graybar, ADI, or Annexter? So we are working with ADI right now. They're adding a new API, which will allow us to have very similar functionality to what we have with like Tech Data and Ingram and those guys. However, they are, it's a new API, so we're still working with them to be able to add that functionality. We've got everything in place on our end. They're just ironing out some things on their end. So as far as Graybar, if you've got a good contact at Graybar, we'll be happy to work with them. We've run into some issues working with Graybar. With Annexter, we don't have any good contacts there either. So send an email to our support team with a contact that you have, and we'll be happy to work with them. Alan had a question. How much is the updated version? Well, if you're covered under UMP, it's free. If you're not covered under UMP, you would have to purchase to get up on UMP, and now is a perfect time to do that because we do have our winter special going on. Your UMPs and maintenance, additional licenses, that sort of thing. We do have a 10% off winter special going on. That does not apply to normal subscriptions, however. Let's see, once an RFQ is, Jim had a question. Once RFQ is awarded, does a PO need to be created? Yes, because you still actually need to purchase that item. Even though the vendor said, hey, we'll go ahead and sell this to you for 50 bucks, you need to actually say, hey, vendor, I want to move forward for 50 bucks. So you will still need to do that, but we do make that more streamlined, and we will reference that vendor RFQ that the vendor used as well. Let's see, question from Todd. Will desktop connect to the QuoteWerks hosted SQL database? Yes, there's no synchronization. Both desktop and QuoteWerks Web talk to the same SQL database, whether it's our hosted, whether you're hosting it internally at your office, or if you're up on Azure or Amazon RDS. they all talk to the same database. There's no synchronization of quote information. It goes back and forth. All right, great, Luke. Yeah, so Kyle had a question when I was showing off the ConnectWise pricing for ConnectWise Manage in the product lookup. Is that pricing sourced from our in-house inventory items? Yes, that is pulling from your ConnectWise Manage product source. So that's where that's coming from. And you do have the ability to see inventory quantity, but you'd have to be, let's go ahead, answer that question. I don't think this one is set up for it. So if I was to do a quick, I don't know if I have an inventory item. It would show inventory on hand. Yeah, this one doesn't have, yeah. The integration, the ConnectWise integration that I'm using does not have access to that. But if you did, you would have just the show inventory on hand option there. Alan, I can't give you a quote for the UMP through this webinar here. If you send an email to sales@quoteworks.com, they'll be happy to do that, or you can just give us a call, 407-248-1481. All right, so I'll give you guys some time to ask some more questions. One just came up from Todd here. How much is that? I'm assuming you're asking about our database hosting. Our database hosting is $10 per user, and that's per QuoteWerks user. So if you have 2 QuoteWerks users, it would be $20 a month, and then we do offer discounts on that as well. All right. Andre had a question about Etilize and multi-currency support. It's something I would like to add. We need more people in from vendor, we need more people asking for it on our forums. As we get more people asking for that functionality, we can look at adding that. So make sure you add it to the forum as a feature request. All right. Oh, and speaking of which, I should have said before, if you are working with a partner, you know, not working with us directly, talk to your partners. They will be able to give you pricing on UMP as well. They'll have that information. So if you're working with a partner like First Direct or Quintadina or any of those guys, you can contact them and they'll be able to get you a quote for UMP as well. All right. Okay. Just waiting on a few more questions here. See, we did have a question here from Alan about taxes. QuoteWerks does have the ability to bring in tax information. So as you can see here, I am in Florida. If I go to my sale info tab, actually that's a bad example because it's going to be the right one. We'll just say my tax is 10%. What I can do is I can use our tax rate lookup. And we do it, I think the way I've got it set up, it's on the ship to, and that's why that didn't come across. So it will show you the breakdown for state, county. If you've got anything else, it will show you what the effective dates were, the last time it was updated. In this case, the tax table didn't need to get updated, but that will show you that tax information breakdown. And then when you do select, it's going to give you your tax rate there as well. Obviously, you know, for the full tax breakdowns and whatnot, it's going to be when you're integrating with your accounting solution. So like QuickBooks Online, one of the things that we added with QuickBooks Online recently is that now we're going to be using their tax rate system when sending over, as an option, their tax rate system when sending over an estimate or an invoice or whatnot. Wow, we've got a bunch of questions that just came in. All right. See, Dana had a question. It's been a long time since we archived quotes from our database. What is the easier way to complete this with no issues retrieving them later if needed? That's a loaded question. Best thing to do is go to Utilities and then Document Purge Wizard. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but usually what I recommend doing, if it's a quote that hasn't closed in over maybe 2 years, you could probably look at getting rid of that. And that's usually the way that I recommend doing it. So I would just do something, like maybe 900 days, so a little bit more than that. And doc type equal to quote and status equal to open, for instance. Go to next. It's going to show you all the ones that need to be purged. So in this case, I've got 937. I'd click on next and it would go out and do the purge. Now, what's cool about that though, is if you were using a CRM like ConnectWise or Goldmine or one of those other ones, if you were on that record, you could double click on the link and it would still open it up inside of QuoteWerks. So that's how you'd retrieve them later, is using that DTF file. As long as you have it attached to a CRM or your quote number, you'd be able to bring that back. Okay. See, question for Sean, from Sean, I should say. If we subscribe to the RFQ online SQL, do we need to open any ports on our firewall? If you're using our hosted SQL, you do not need to open anything. We take care of that, unless you have it like crazy locked down. I have not seen a circumstance where it wouldn't allow it, but I could see where maybe it could happen. But really, out of the gate, you should be able to have that communication automatically set up there. Now, if our support team would be able to assist you with that. Now, if you are hosting SQL yourself, yes, you will have to open up ports just like you would for QuoteWerks Web. Okay. Question from Todd when it comes to the hosting options. What about the IP restrictions enforced by distribution? Yes, you would need to let, if you're using desktop, there's not going to be any IP address changes. It's whatever you were using before. If you're using QuoteWerks Web, a majority of the major distributors have already whitelisted our QuoteWerks web server. But for those that have not, we have the IP address that you can provide to them to make that happen. All right. Question from Brenda about Avalara. Currently, we do not have a direct integration to Avalara. We do have a partner, actually a couple of different partners that have written integrations to Avalara, but we have not as of yet. That is something that has been coming up more frequently. If that's something you're interested in, make sure to add that to our forum. If I haven't said it enough, feature requests, add them to our forum. Other users can then add to that feature request. Us as developers, I am one of the developers here, we can ask you guys questions, as far as how you'd want to see that integration happen. With Avalara, there are so many different ways we could do the integration. I don't know if we'd want to do it exactly the way that some of our integration partners have done it, but it is something that could be done. See, question from Chris about Google font plan for QuoteWerks web PDF templates. I don't have an answer for you on that, Chris. If you haven't already, send an email to support@quoteworks.com. They'll be able to answer that better. I don't have the answer for you here. And if you didn't get an answer that you want, you can always send an email to community@quoteworks.com. That gets to me, and we can get that taken care of for you. Let's see. All right. A question from Claudio, question about Microsoft CSP as a vendor. That's something we're working on as far as adding more cloud vendors. I don't have a timeline on that, so definitely add that as a feature request on our forum. Let's see. See, question from John, with the Zoho quotes, do you anticipate being able to bring the product modifier over to Zoho on a line item basis? I don't see that happening only because of their APIs as far as what I've seen thus far. If their APIs change or if something else happens, we can definitely do that, but definitely add that as a feature request. If nothing else, it'll be a placeholder. And when we do our cadence with them, with Zoho, maybe we can ask for it if it's a problem there. Bob had a question about any differences between the old Zoho integration and the new Zoho integration. We don't have something yet on that. That's a good suggestion, Bob. I'm going to actually write that down right now so we can look at adding that. All right. Wow, so 2/3 of you are still here. I hope that, wow, hope you're getting what you want out of this webinar. This webinar has gone a little bit longer than I was anticipating. If you have any more questions, make sure to ask. I want to make sure that you guys have time to ask any questions you have. If you don't have any questions, thank you for joining us today. Like I said, we will be posting this webinar on our YouTube channel as well as on our videos page on our website. So if you missed something, maybe I went too fast, you know, you just want to see it again, you can definitely see it there. Like I said before, we do have our winter special going on, so now's a great time to take advantage of that. That ends on Friday, I believe. And then also, you know, if you see what else, if you're interested in vendor RFQ, definitely send us an email, sales@QuoteWerks.com. We can get you a 2 or 3 month trial on that. That way you can see how it's going to work for you before you move forward with it. And we are actively working on that. So just giving it just a little bit more time here. As I see you guys flood out. It's great. So if you, like I said before, feature requests, make sure you either send them to support@QuoteWerks.com or add them to our forum. Our forum is really the best place to go when it comes to anything with our with feature requests, because we can ask you guys questions. All right, speaking of questions, we haven't received any more questions in the last couple of minutes here, so thank you again. I look forward to seeing you guys update to version 5.7. If you have any questions, send an email to support@QuoteWerks.com. And with that, have a great day.